Welcome to the Hiring and Empowering Solutions podcast. My name is Molly McGrath, and this podcast is dedicated to providing the key ingredients to transform your employees into a dream team that create consistent results in every aspect of your business, including team empowerment, leadership, business development, communication, hiring, and firing. As some of the country's leading staffing and management consultants, we help business owners, i.e. entrepreneurs, and the team that support them, i.e. entrepreneurs, to powerfully connect and work together to grow the business. My guest today, I'm so excited for, is Olivia Lundberg, a transformation and manifestation expert. And our topic today is about how to tune in and adjust, trust, and manage your energy to cultivate professional relationships. So welcome, Olivia.
Well, hi, Molly. It's such a pleasure to be here with you on your wonderful podcast. I'm so honored to be a guest. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so excited for our listeners today. And so, Olivia, one of the things in preparation for today's podcast, I was thinking about, I really think it does a great service to read your mission statement that is so inspiring to give our listeners a little taste of what they're in for today. What I love about your mission statement is what you write about is the power of courageously manifesting the life you're meant to live when you realize you have absolutely nothing to lose.
Yes.
And how to powerfully and unapologetically, which is one of my absolute favorite statements, decide to own your truths and live a life you love, which is why you are so passionate about helping business owners, i.e. people and humans, expand their notion of what's possible and live their deep soul truths.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. Yes.
Wow. So can you tell us quickly a little bit about what a transformation and manifestation expert means?
Yes, I can. Well, I guess the best way to do that is to describe who comes into my office, right? Change and challenge are usually the catalysts for huge up-leveling and growth, right? And business owners tend to get stuck in this template of what is everybody else is doing, what this world wants us to be. And so I see a lot of people that come in that are on that precipice, that are getting those uncomfortable feelings of like, this isn't working. The thing that really worked for 10 years does not work anymore. And they are at a loss. They've tried all the other tools and they keep getting this little voice inside themselves that's like, there's an easier way. There's a better way. And so I see a lot of people in frustration, nowhere else to turn. And then they're like, I just got to keep trusting myself. I can't keep asking other people for permission. So I really walk with people to help them tap into this other place inside of themselves that maybe the other people around them are not comfortable talking about. This tech term of intuition can be very scary for a lot of people, but I think we're also living in this amazing time when so many people are tapping into that, and there's a lot of great shift that's happening when we get centered. So I walk people through transformation, which usually starts out as discomfort, challenges, things that don't have solutions yet. And then I help them kind of manifest, get clear really on what it is they want, and then start working with their own intuitive guidance and their intuitive team and spirit to help them understand the messages that are coming through. And then amazing things happen, like really easy things start shifting, or I should say it another way, really hard things start shifting easily. So it's really lovely to get to walk with people, and then they come out the other side and they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. And they go about their journey. So that's it in a nutshell. I hope that makes some sense there.
Oh, it does for me. That's exactly how I wound up in your office for the very first time. We had a mutual friend in our community that had shared with me what you were doing for her. And just even hearing the word transformation and manifestation, those really pop out for me because a lot of times people use the word transition, which
Yeah.
sometimes feels like it's going to be heavy and
Yes.
hard. And I love just the shift, the subtle energetic shift in that in regards to transformation, which just seems to seem so much more enveloped in possibility and
Yes. Yeah.
lightness. And
I
then the
love that.
manifestation piece of just there's active choice here, and I am in control. I'm not a victim, and it's not about
Yes.
all these things that are happening to me, but for manifestation is about what can I be involved in the creation of what I want to happen for me.
Yes, completely. I think you hit it on the head. It's that empowerment, which you do so well in your line of work as well, and you inspire so many people. So it is that message I constantly give my clients. It's so funny. People come in that first session and they're like, "Okay, I'm going to tell you some hard things," and I'm like, "Okay, let's do this." And everything they say, no matter what I'm like, "Oh, totally normal." They're like, "What? Really?" Like, "Yeah. Oh, so the message that really shifts people usually beyond the intuitive stuff that comes in is just that basic, like, here I am sharing myself with another person, explaining some hard things that are happening, and I'm not being judged, like it's normal. Oh, there is a path out. There is this beautiful higher purpose that's happening here. And when people start to like understand that there is just this beautiful higher purpose that is happening, and any challenge that you're undergoing is just a sign that you're up leveling. Like, we don't change if we're happy. If we're happy, we tend to stay status quo until those things that are making us happy don't make us happy anymore. And that
Mm.
usually comes with life transitions, loss, change, hardship, trauma, something to the effect that shakes us up, that gets our status quo out of the normalcy and into a new place of growth. And so people really resonate, and myself included, to that message of like, this is really purposeful, this is really beautiful, and this is really important. Let's walk this. So that is, in the nutshell, an energy that I just really carry through my client sessions and tends
Mm.
to help that process along. And that's what I give your listeners. If there is something that is a challenge, just telling yourself, I'm so excited that I'm up leveling this area of my life. This is such a sign. If you can just shift that perspective, it's amazing how that figures itself out.
I'm sitting here just silently laughing because that you just said that, Olivia, because anytime I come into your office and I'm on my tirade or my soapbox for about a good 10,
Oh my
12
gosh,
minutes,
it's
and I'm
so
just
funny. Yeah.
going, and I always laugh because Olivia's sitting across from me, like smiling, grinning from ear to ear like a kid on Christmas. And she always, this is amazing, Molly. This is so great. Because, as you said, there's nothing that surprises you. And beyond every breakdown is a breakthrough. So when you find
Yes.
yourself in that contrast and you find yourself in a place of what we call just struggle,
Yeah.
it's that you are at that tipping point of a
Yes.
massive breakthrough, right?
Completely 100%. And it's so much easier. Let me tell you, it's so much easier to give that message to somebody else than it is to give it to yourself when you need it. So, what I'm, putting out there, I know is one of the things that we may not do in the moment. But if you can do that even days later, if you can just come back to that thought of like, oh my God, what I just went through up leveled, or is like a sign that I'm up leveling, it still impacts that experience. So I think that there's a notion in energy work, or just in general in our society, we have this perfectionist, quality that we all want to achieve. Excuse me. And when we go into this intuitive side, we sometimes bring that perfectionist side with us, and we want it to look a certain way. And when we're working with law of attraction and other things that we do in energy work, we can get into this perfectionist model very easily. So if we can stay in a place of like, there's still more to learn. Oh my God, what's going to happen next? I'm so excited. Like that wonderment instead of like, okay, it needs to look like this, and this is what I'm walking into. So if we could just stay a little bit open, especially when we're walking through transformation and transition, it will open doors that were not possible. So just reframing into this is amazing, this is a time of growth, is really helpful for that.
Mm. And I love it. You use the word law of attraction because you have helped over 800 plus clients over the past 10 years really navigate through that
Yes.
transformation, transition, manifestation, law of attraction. So can you talk to us about, because I'm certain many
Yeah.
listeners here have a list. If I were to tell them, take a second and make a list of the conversations, the situations, the appointments that you have to walk into, even just in the next couple of days or weeks, of either employee conversations, client meetings, personal conversations that there might be some energy around that, call it either just anxious or feeling like it needs to be a difficult or a heavy conversation,
Yes.
or maybe even just an uncertain conversation, brand new client coming in. We're a little bit attached to the outcome. We need to get hired by them, or
Yes.
a upset client, or a tricky client that maybe we're afraid we're going to get fired or challenged or pinned against the wall. So can you talk to us about how the energy, mindset, and ultimately how to the manifestation that we can bring quote unquote into the room impacts the outcome? Because we hear about the law of attraction, we hear about manifestation. And can you talk to us about how this works?
Yes. So every teacher of the law of attraction basically, comes into that core principle that like attracts like. So we attract what we want in our life based on the internal vibration or the energy that we're emitting or the thoughts that we're thinking or the feelings that we're having are starting to attract things to us. And when people first hear that, they go into maybe a little bit of a panic of like, oh my God, I am a hot mess and I'm going to attract the hottest messes in the world to me. I've got to get my, stuff into this positive place. I need to ignore the hard stuff, all this stuff that goes back to that perfectionist model. And what the law of attraction down here on this earth is we have like a lovely thing that happens down here where it takes time. It takes time to manifest. It's sometimes we have instant manifestations. We have like a parking spot if we want it. We've got these other really amazing synchronicities that start to happen. And the more you do work with the law of attraction, those things start to speed up. But if you're trying to up level something that you've been doing the same for a very long time, like the chronic pattern. So if you're always going into client interactions or employee meetings with this nagging feeling of dread, and it's been doing this for many, many years, well, it's going to take you, a little bit of time to kind of restructure that pattern. Sometimes it's very short and sometimes it takes, a little bit longer. Everybody's different. And so that's a really lovely thing about the law of attraction is we have this time to kind of fine tune it. And what we think immediately isn't going to manifest immediately. So if we're having a really bad day and we can't get into that positive energy that we need to have this great interaction, well, that's okay because we're not necessarily going to manifest a shipwreck to us. So that's a nice little cushion we have down here on earth, which some people find a bit annoying because some things take a little bit longer. But I want to just preface it with you can't go wrong here and you're not supposed to be perfect with this. So if you can just take one of these tools that we'll talk about throughout this podcast and play with it, you are activating such a wealth and wellspring of attraction and new ideas and new things that start to come in. So really, you don't need to work with a lot of the things that we'll be talking about today. So whatever resonates, I want to just put out there for your listeners to really write down and practice and play with. And the key phrase here is play. Like it's not a job. You're not going to go to law of attraction work every day. That's going to kill it because the law of attraction is really getting yourself excited, feeling feeling is such a huge part of the law of attraction. So there's a lot of different tools. Different teachers give different tools on how to get into that place of feeling excited, feeling the joy of that thing that's coming, knowing it's here. All those really good mindset pieces that shift your energy are all great tools. But I would say, in working with business owners and working especially with how do I hire some great people to work with me? How do I fire some people? How do I have these new conversations with my employees around how to interact with clients? All of these really normal things that business owners have to navigate. The one tool that I come back to, and I do it in my own practice as well, is really simply asking ourselves a question before we go into those interactions. So the cool thing about asking a question is that the universe and ourselves have to answer it. And if we ask the right kinds of questions, we get the right kinds of answers. It's very obvious, it's very common sense. But when we apply it to the law of attraction and energy work and our intuitive inner world, it can transform and shift and create a foundation for wherever you're going into. So that meeting that's really hard and you're afraid that you're going to say the wrong thing, or especially for the law field where you have to maybe hold things quiet and be very professional, to set that intention of how you want that to feel, how you want to feel in that interaction is, I think, one of the really easy tools and keys to this process. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So the question that really reframes the experience is just simply asking ourselves, not out loud, just asking ourselves, how would it feel to be really confident in this meeting? So it's the how would you feel? How would it feel? Just posing that to our body naturally moves our body into the feeling state. It's kind of cool how that answers itself. So I would suggest for your listeners to make a list of some qualities that they find would be really valuable qualities to have in those interactions. So for example, the confidence piece, or really being authentically me, right? Or being a great listener, right? Whatever those key qualities are, pick one or two that are really important, and then pose the question, how would it feel to be confident and authentic in this interaction? And then wait. And notice that your feeling state shifts and it starts to move into it's very subtle. So this may take some people a little bit more practice to feel it, but just by posing that question, even if you don't feel it, you've set yourself up to explore that world in that interaction, right? So you're telling the universe, I'd really love to know how that would feel. So let's try this out, right? And the universe like, ooh, they want to feel confident in this interaction. Let's see how that would feel, right? So we're always walking in our world, asking questions to this world. We're always exploring it in some way. It's just sometimes we're not conscious of the questions we're asking the world, and we can use that to our advantage. So that's, I would say, one of the simpler tools to quickly shift into where you want to be in that interaction. The second one is visualizing. So that's a mindset shift, right? So visualizing, I usually like to visualize smiling people. I think people really enjoy people that are open and smiling and listening. And so if I'm going into an interaction with a client or a group of people or teaching a class for the first time with strangers, I will take a moment before going in. How would it feel to really love what I'm doing with these people and connect? And then I'll get into the feeling state. And then I'll visualize, oh my God, that's what it would look like. They would be looking at me. They would be smiling. They would be nodding their head. They would be engaged. So I see them across from me doing these things, these visual cues that they're engaged, that they're on the same page. Even if they have a difference in opinion, they're willing to work that out. They're open. So that is the second tool that I would suggest for the listeners, to get into the feeling state and then visualize what you would like to see, how the body language is of the individuals. So yeah.
I just want to say something. Wow. I had no idea how you were gonna where you're gonna go with that, Olivia, but I find it interesting that the first question, and I love it, you said finding these really powerful questions versus disempowering questions, because I'm just even thinking of our listeners. I was visualizing the business owner where a lot of their anxiety, for lack of a better term, would be walking into a conference room to meet with a prospective client.
Yes.
It'd be walking into a conversation with maybe a referral source or doing a presentation that they do out in their community and speaking in front of a group that ideally they would want to connect with and get hired by, et
Yes.
cetera. And I hear that a lot of times, like they're always talking about the possible probable outcome before they even get into the room,
Yes.
and they're just disempowering and just crushing their confidence. And I love
Yeah.
the way that you put that question of even I even sat here and answered it myself, sitting in the seat of the attorney or the business owner, whoever's listening, of just even asking that question, how would it feel confident and authentic in this interaction? And some things I wrote down is it's not about getting hired, it's
No.
about being of service. And a
Exactly.
lot of our listeners come from a place of service, and they come from a place of impact and difference making. So
Yes.
if you just even walk in of how can I be, if you really feel confident, authentic in your truest self, then it's about how can I be of service to this
Yes,
person.
exactly. I love that, Molly, completely. And I feel like so many business owners come to that place. Most business owners start that with service, right? And then we get into the nitty gritty and the detail in the longer run business. It's really normal. Our egos take over and we go, okay, we've had all these years. It should be easier. It should be, and we lose our passion. And to get back to that place, there are these moments in a business life cycle where we're being asked to reconnect to a new passion, or we're being asked to reconnect to a new way of being of service. It's not the same, it's an evolving thing, right? So, what got them excited originally needs to be kind of reconnected to. So, that posing of the question, I love that you connected it to the being of service, because just asking that, what would it feel like to be at this new level of service right now? Like really can start to keep that momentum going and keep that positive connection to your business happening, which the normal life cycle is to lose that connection, right? And then have to
Mm.
regain it. So what would happen if you just started weekly, moment in your day where you just tap into that? What would it feel like to be at this next level of service that I'm headed into right now? You know, what if we did that? Like, it's posing these questions for me in my business. So I love this, Molly. You're
Yeah.
very inspiring. Yeah.
As you were just talking, I was thinking about Think and Grow Rich, when they always say,
Mm,
and we always teach this, that before you're getting on stage or you're walking into that conference room or you're meeting with a prospective clients, like you go in there with the $1 million in the bank mindset. You already
yes.
have the $1 million. And
Yes.
it is just that 2 millimeter shift is just like off
Oh,
the charts difference, where you're like, I don't need to get hired. I got all my bills paid.
completely.
Then you show up like the guy with the
Oh,
jeans and the t-shirts and the flip-flops, and you're like the hippie at heart, where you're like, hey, you're just connecting and
yes.
you're just sitting in a lounge chair, versus when you do need to get hired and you're so attached to the outcome. You're so
Yes.
like this, when you're white knuckling and you are interacting with this has to work,
Yes.
versus, let me see how this is going to shake out here.
Yes.
It's so different. And that it just kind of like I'm goosebumps bumped here,
Yes.
because that's energy, guys. Like, I cannot
Yes.
say, just take that visual, going back to your second piece of visualizing. I love this, because that's the difference of the visualization. You got $1 million in the bank. You're showing up in your,
Yes.
your tie dyed and your flip flops and your jeans and what have you, and you're walking into a conversation. How does that feel?
Yes.
It's light, it's free, it's fun, it's connected. versus
Yes.
I have no money in the bank. I have to pay my bills. This client has got to hire me. This is make or break. This has to
Yes.
work. And you're walking in and even visualize it. You're stiff as a board. You are very unapproachable. You're
Yes.
there's zero vulnerability or connection there. Just think of the stereotypical marble desk and the three-piece
Yes.
suit. If you
Yes.
even just take those two very polar opposite visualizations of regardless of what type of business, regardless what situation you're walking in, if you're walking into a conference room with an existing or prospective client, walking on stage and giving a presentation, we all know. I mean, why do people love Tony Robbins all the time? He shows up in khakis and
Yes.
t-shirt and buka shells and he's
Yes.
swearing like a trucker and he's unapologetic for how he shows up, and people are
Yes.
just throwing credit cards at him all day long.
Completely. That authenticity piece, it is so right on, right? And just walking anywhere, right? Okay, we are at this beautiful time on this earth. In my line of work, a lot of my colleagues and I talk about this. Like the energy is shifting, people are evolving, people are coming into more awareness, people are wanting to do things differently, people are shifting old traditional templates of how to do things, and especially businesses, and being like, you know what? Anything's possible. What's my path? And there are so many amazing business coaches out there with new systems and all this amazing stuff that wasn't there, 10 years ago. And so we're really walking into really savvy clients. We are interacting with very savvy clients, whether they know it or not. They are feeling, they can pick up and feel when it is about money, and they can pick up and feel when it is about connection, right? And people are wanting connection. There is this desire to want to be authentic themselves, and they are going to want to connect with people who are already being authentic themselves. Does that make sense? So it's like neither here nor there what you're selling or what your specialty is. It's about who you are and who you're hiring. Are they authentic, right? Are they able to step into that place too? We all have our down days. But one of the other things that, like, I love that. If you had $1 million in the bank, like how would that interaction be? You did that so beautifully. And it's so, so true. And one of the things that I do in my practice as well is like, oh my God, I'm so excited to meet this beautiful soul that I've known for many lifetimes. So of course this goes into my own belief system that we have past lives and so forth. But that is the thing that I've noticed in my business. When I just go into a potential client sale and sales calls and things that people usually dread. Nobody loves sales calls unless you're just like, whatever, we're just talking. We're just talking and sharing, and I'm sharing my passion. That's really the mindset, that visualization, that whatever you want to call it, that back woo-woo energy that you want to put into it, that really I've seen do wonderful things in my business. When I go into an interaction with somebody and just go, God, we're like old souls that are meeting for the first time. I'm so excited to re-engage with this person and see where they're at now. Like that shifts, and I don't worry about like the money piece, or I don't make that a priority. And it's like, am I here again, like you said, to serve? So whatever you can do, and that, how would you feel? What would that look like, are such keys to the law of attraction.
You just said something that kind of triggered something for me
Yeah.
about walking in. And I love that even that visualization of we've met before, that already de-energizes the entire situation,
Yes.
because it's you're already saying we're just old friends reuniting. We're
Yes.
coming back together, and think about that. That just
Yes.
immediately eliminates any kind of attachment to it, which is something that I would love for you to talk about, because you've helped me personally so much with releasing attachments. And one of the things that you do so very well in your teachings and in your private practice is about using a technique called a relationship bubble. And I think it would be very, very helpful for all of our listeners today, whether you're an employee, an employer, or a coach or a consultant, or wherever you're coming from, to talk to us a little bit about kind of that ruminating that we do, and that emotional charge and attachment and assumptions that we walk into situations and walk out of situations after interacting with another that might leave us either triggered and or really attached to that outcome. And I would love if you can maybe share a little bit about this strategy that I know that you have helped so many people across the
Yeah,
nation with.
completely. It's such a powerful tool. This tool I want to just reference and point out that this isn't something that I have created. This was given to me, excuse me, by my Reiki master teacher, Marnie Vincalis in Denver. And I learned this many years ago when I first started doing energy work professionally. And it has been such a game changer. So, the premise is, like you were saying, that we do have energy all around us all the time, not just our own, not just our own thoughts, our energies, our emotions, our energies, but we're constantly around people, right? Other people, and they're walking around with all their energy, their thoughts, their emotions. And the interesting thing from the backside energetic perspective is, if you could see that energy, you would see all of these amazingly complex thought forms that are flying around. You would see the emotions that people aren't necessarily feeling safe enough to express, but are right there, right? And when you're interacting with people, we pick that up. We can feel that. So, like, if somebody is saying to you, no, everything's all right. And you're like, this is clearly not all right. Like, why is this person saying this? It feels really uncomfortable right now. Why am I feeling uncomfortable? Well, you're feeling their unconscious, subconscious, or conscious reactions that they may not want to communicate, or they may not want to deal with or take responsibility for. But it is like the elephant in the room, right? And so it's really easy to take on. So when we talk about taking on an energy work, it literally is as simple as, hey, Molly, can you hold this cup of coffee for me? And you're like, sure, I will take that. Instead of, you know what, let me check in if I want to hold this cup of coffee. Let me check in if this is actually something that I'm supposed to do. Do I have time to do this? We don't. We tend to just like help, right? And especially for those of us in businesses that want to serve others, we do have that healing capacity within our relationships, right? So for your listeners that have interactions with clients, they're there to help, right? And so it's really easy to maybe subconsciously take on the emotions that other people are expressing that are hard or tricky, because we want to help and get them out the other side very quickly. And that may not be the best thing for us as a service provider, right? As a business owner, as a person that is interacting professionally, because after that experience, it's very easy to feel drained. It's very easy to feel resentful. It's very easy to feel overwhelmed. It's very easy to feel whatever it was that your clients or your employees were feeling or expressing in that moment. So the relationship bubble is such a really simple visualization tool to help you separate your energy from their energy, or their emotions from your emotions, and not get enmeshed, and not get triggered, and not get sucked into this downward spiral of conflict without being able to see the sunshine or the solution, right? So as a service provider, as a business owner, as a person that's interacting professionally with somebody who is in need of help in different ways, we're really being called to hold space. We're being called to hold the space of, I have the lifeboat. It's right here. It's got lots of gas, beautiful food. Would you like to come onto it? I know that you have had a really hard time, but I am here right now. You know what I mean? So it's like they have to make the choice to come in. We can't force them onto our boat. And so this relationship bubble allows us to stay centered and grounded in us so that we can see clearly the paths that we can help these people walk through, or we can suggest solutions for, and stay within our own energy field so we are strong enough to walk and guide them through that experience. So really simply, the relationship bubble is a bubble. It's like, if you want to imagine a maybe 1 foot in diameter sphere or orb that's floating out in front of you, that is your relationship bubble. You visualize this outside of a bigger bubble. So we walk with the energy around us, which we can visualize very simply as a bubble of light that is kind of encapsulating us. So we're in the center of this bigger bubble that holds our energy with us. That is our energy. That is no one else's energy. So if you want to visualize that bigger container of yours around you, and then place this smaller relationship bubble outside of it, this bubble will be your mediator between any experience that you encounter, any other person's energy, any other experience that might be hard or needing more centering and clarity for you. So this relationship bubble's job is to take in anything that isn't yours, that you do not need to take on, and any information that is being given to you. And it will release the things that don't need to come in, that you don't need to think about, that aren't important or relevant. And it also connects you to listening from your heart. And the way that you do this is you just imagine your relationship bubble out in front of you, outside of your bigger bubble, with a tube of light connecting to your heart and a tube of light connecting to the earth. So it can release anything that isn't important into the earth, and the earth naturally recycles it as energy. And it also connects you to your heart so that the people that you're interacting with can feel heard and loved and valued and listened to from that heart space. You're not judging from your mind. It's very much connected to that heart-to-heart interaction, which is very helpful for people going through traumatic experiences, conflict, in extreme anxiety, not sure which way to turn. So if those kinds of conversations are coming up a lot in your listeners' practice or business, then this would be a really valuable tool to employ. So all you do is you visualize this before you go in. So you set up your kind of visual energetic space. I've got my bigger bubble of me. I'm inside. And then I have my relationship bubble outside of that, connected to the earth and connected to my heart. And it is what is keeping everything filtered and helping me stay connected to this experience and being centered in this deeper truth that needs to be maybe communicated with love. And you go in and it's a game changer. I do this with my students in my energy classes, and I have them practice that. We'll have an interaction where they don't have this bubble up, and I'll have my other students start talking about really intense things, like being that friend that is always in crisis. And they become, I say, just be the most annoying friend you've ever had, that as me. And they're like, really? I don't want to do that to that person. And they get a sense of that experience. And then I have them put that relationship bubble up halfway through the conversation. And it is amazing. I'll see this difference. I literally see the people, my students who don't have the relationship bubble up. And I've got this other student bombarding them with problems, and they're starting to get tense. They're starting to sweat. They're like, get me out of here. I don't want to be, I'm listening. Oh my God, this isn't, I'm right there with them. I'm walking with them through this conflict in my head. Oh my God, they are enmeshed. And then when I say visualize the bubble, they pop it in. So you can do this in any moment, in any experience. You can pre-plan and put that in place before you go in, or you can do it in the moment when you realize this is getting heavy and I'm getting sucked in. Bubble on, let's imagine that in front of us, between us right now. And when they do, their body relaxes. They're able to take deep breaths. They've got more of a peaceful, calm look on their face. And what is so fascinating is the person that is trying to give them the worst case scenarios can't find the words for the worst case scenarios anymore. They start to shift their conversation. They start to stop becoming the victim and start kind of resolving or coming to some places of understanding. So this relationship bubble is just a game changer, especially for situations that involve a lot of intense emotion or the potential for disappointment. So this bubble helps come into resolution and brings in maybe more of that higher perspective and higher purpose.
Mm. I remember when you first taught me about this and the visualization that you gave that really resonated with me and probably
Yeah.
will with a lot of our business owners here was almost like think of it like a bank teller when you pull up to that
Mm,
drive through and you put in your request in the tube, which is a place of lack. I have no money, I need money. And it
yes.
goes down under the ground. So talking about kind of that grounding and anchoring that you talk about and then shoots back up where then you get that abundance that comes back to you and it's like here's your money or here's your
Yes.
deposit slip that went into your bank account. So it's this place of it's an order request, and I use this all the time. And for me what helps is really that bank teller visualization and thinking of almost like that tube and
Yeah.
shooting it where the middle point between it is literally where it goes underground and it's just sort of de-energizing and grounding
Yes.
that energy around that. And I always love that so much, Olivia.
Yay. You have worked that so well, Molly. Like, I love that that has really, like, you really made that yours and so helpful, right? That visual, everybody's got a different visual. It's interesting. We start with that bubble and everybody takes it into wherever they need to go. So just for your listeners, know, just like you said, whatever visual connects to that basic premise, there's something filtering and bringing you only the things that are important,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Whatever that is. Yeah.
You know what it kind of why as you were talking it anchors even that the releasing the attachment to it and the relationship bubble really brings us back to your first point around feeling that confidence and
Yes.
authenticity first and foremost because I always tell my clients people will always hire you for three reasons and three reasons only because they feel safe, they feel acknowledged, and they feel heard.
Mm-hmm. Oof.
And
Goosebumped on that one.
it has
Yes.
no idea if you're the most expensive game in town. You know, you and I've had multiple conversations in a lot of your business building classes and stuff like that. When you increase your fees, and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, like now there's no clients, everyone left.
Yes.
And then next thing you know, you're like, it brings in that manifestation. It brings in that transformation again and saying, you're weeding out the weak. You're
Yes.
getting closer. You're getting in alignment with really truly who you're supposed to be here to serve with. And there,
Yes.
of course, there's always that oh crap like moment where you're panicking. But what's coming up for me is just really truly that law of attraction and manifestation and that unwavering faith in regards
Yes.
to you're getting closer to that. So bringing these pieces, it's kind of connecting all the dots and solidifying this here, at least for me right now, as hearing you speak. And I'm trying really hard to sit in the perspective of our listeners of that, you know, what's coming up is that confidence and that authenticity with that detachment and
Yes.
releasing that attachment and truly like grounding and anchoring into above all else, like the relationship and connection versus
Yes.
the money and the outcome.
Exactly. Exactly. And you said something really important, Molly. I mean, you've said a lot of things that are amazingly important. One of the things, though, that you just said was like that client intention basically is what you were speaking about as well. When you start to up level and you start to increase your rates and you start to value what you do and you start to align to more of your you know, people that you're here to really serve and really value what you do, that is so key. I do want to just underline that we can do all the relationship bubbles we want, but if we are constantly getting back to that place of like, I just need the money. Let's just take anything. Where's the next person? Right. We're not really in that alignment of our higher service mission, for lack of a better word. We're not really here serving the people we need. We're in that lack state. So, one of the other things that I really underline, especially in my business programs and classes, is like setting a client intention is like so key, and especially and people talk about this all the time, right? Marie Forleo talks about like how you need to reset your client avatar with every new service you get or with new expansion in your business or new employees. You need to come back to like, who are your clients? And so that's talked about a lot, but it is so key in energy work and that behind the scenes manifesting that law of attraction, that when you're really clear on who it is you serve and what they look like, what, not necessarily physical appearance wise, but like what are the qualities and characteristics of this individual, you're going to start calling them in much more powerfully. And they're going to start to know that your flag's up. They're like, oh, they're ready for me. They're not just getting anybody right now because they're afraid of the money piece or whatnot. And you're going to be filled up more when you start working with people who value you. So one of the key things that I put into my client intention is they take responsibility for themselves. Like this is something that people, and it took me a while to get there. And I had some clients that kept showing me like, no, you take care of this. No, I'm not going to look at this. You take care. And I'm like, oh, I am not able to live your life, like this. And it would start to drain me early on in my career. And I was like, I finally got it. Like, I need people who take responsibility for themselves. And it definitely brought a mirror to one of the things that healers and myself have to kind of like look at is how much do we want to micromanage another person's energy? How much do we want to be codependent? How much do we want to relive old patterns that we learned from way back when, right? And when do we want to like start working with people who are on the same path as us, who are growth oriented, who are there to take responsibility and know how to do that, but they just don't have the tools or the next steps yet. And that's where we come in, right? So I would suggest for your listeners, if they haven't already, to really kind of write it down. Like, I love working with people who have all these amazing qualities and take responsibility for their life and know these basic life tools that they stay centered in, right? Like they have support around them as well. And of course, it's nice to say they're willing to pay for my services. But that responsibility piece is so key. And that can like alleviate a lot of I call them like distraction-based clients. They're there maybe for the money, but they're more distracted. They're more in their own kind of chaos. And we're here to kind of maybe get them resourced someplace else or get them to that next place very quickly, right? And then they move on. But maybe your listeners want that more long-term relationship-oriented client that is there to also bring in new ideas to their own business. So it's like this next level of client can be also very inspiring to the business owner that's maybe lacked inspiration. So setting that client intention is another valuable tool within this.
Wow. As you're saying, it really brings me to another question. And I think a very valuable point to speak into for our listeners. And I know many of our clients and business owners struggle with is that I love that you talk about the avatar and what I'm taking away from it of sort of when you're at that point where you're not attracting the right clients because you're feeling this frustration, you're feeling this this internal struggle, if you will. You're dreading walking into the conference room on the phone, however you do it, and getting really clear on your avatar and checking in with your energy and getting really, really clear on how it's showing you where you need to take action. And usually when there is that struggle and that friction and that heavy and hard, it's the universe, call it whatever you want. It's shining the flashlight on where you are tolerating the old way, if you will, and or where you need to take action. So can you talk to us quickly about how to use that internal compass, call it intuition, whatever you might call it, and how to use that on showing, especially when you are, hopefully, if you're listening to this, you are on a path of growth. There are things that you need to do: increase your fees, fire a couple clients, fire employees, whatever it might be. Not that it all has to be from a place of of negativity, but some things of inspiration and opportunity as well. Launch a new service, launch a new product, get on stage and start doing speaking engagements when you may be very fearful of that, whatever it might be. So, can you talk to us about how to check in with your energy and how it will always, 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 always point you in a place very clearly and how it's showing you where you need to take some inspired
Yes.
action?
That is a great question. The $1,000,000 question, I think, for all of us, because we all go through this at certain points. One of the key pieces I think you talked about is just like that fear, when that fear comes in, because a lot of these big steps that you're mentioning are really new steps for people, right? Where we usually doubt ourselves right before a big step up, right? So getting on that stage, if you haven't gotten on that stage before, all those good things. So how do we release the fear that normally pops up, those old patterns that you're talking about, and get to that very subtle, grounded state of being that's like courageous? It's taking courageous action, and courageous recognizes that it's very scary, but you're doing it, right? How do you get into that alignment? And one of the things that is very helpful with working with fear is loving it. Like loving fear embraces it. It keeps it from feeling separate, and it starts to bring it back to that wholeness that you are. So one of the things too within that tool is we tend to pick one or the other. We tend to go, okay, we have to get on stage. Let's use the stage example. We have to get on stage. We've never gotten on stage before. We're going to die and fail. And oh my God, all the fears of that are going to come up, right? I'm going to lose my pants, whatever that is. And we start to like go onto that side of the coin. And we forget all of the inspired action that got us to that place. Oh my God, I get my message out more. I get to meet more people. So there's always two sides of a coin. So if we can hold both sides at one time, we come into a place of balance. If instead of like, oh my God, I got to get rid of the fear. I got to not be negative. Oh my God, what do I need to do to distract myself from that negativity? That's usually where we're told to go. Like, go shopping, go do something great for yourself. And that's great. That's self-care, but the fear is going to keep coming back. It's like, oh, great, you got your nails done. I let you get your nails done, and now you're back at home watching the show, and I'm going to come back in, and I'm still here. Do you know what I mean? So it's like we have to somehow make peace with these aspects of ourselves. This may be like our 5-year-old self that was like, when we got on stage for our school play, remember when we totally bailed and we threw up on stage and we were super sick, right? Like it's totally valid. And we're missing the point that we've had a lot of experiences in our life, and we have seen a lot of people fail or succeed or whatever those labels are. And so it's not like something that is, just thrown out of the sky at us. These are places within us that need a little bit more love. It's like if you had your 4-year-old child come to you and is like, I don't want to start kindergarten. I'm really afraid. You're not going to be like, buck it up, buttercup, let's do this. You're going to sit there and be like, oh, honey, come here. But we don't do that with ourselves a lot of the times. So when fear does crop up, and this really activates our intuition, it's amazing how love will activate our center. That's the key, right? We're here to love all of us. We're here to not like maybe necessarily all of the people in the world, but us, ourselves, all the aspects of us. And when we do that, when we hold, okay, I'm in fear and I'm also in joy. I'm in both. What if I just like let those be in my head right now? We can come into a place of center a little bit more easily, and we can start to see the next choices to make. And maybe the next choice is just taking a day off. Maybe the next choice is being really just gentle with ourselves and having the bowl of ice cream that we're so craving right now. Whatever that is, that we come into a place of non-judgment when we embrace and love. And it's really that simple. And then our true essence comes in, our authenticity comes in, because we're holding all of us with us. We're saying to all of us, all parts of us, all ages of us, all thoughts of us, you're valuable. We love you, and you're coming with us on this next level. We're all coming with us, right? We're not letting anybody go. Because all these aspects are thinking is like, oh my God, we're going to the next level and I'm going to be dropped off at the side of the road and I'm going to be alone and afraid and I don't know where I am. Why don't they want me on their bus? And what we're here to do is be like, oh my God, the bus has so many seats. Come on in. Even if you're panicked, I'm here. We're here. We're together, right? One of the best ways to diffuse a class, because I was a teacher, and I still am a teacher, but I used to teach at the university for about eight years. And when when a student was like, this is stupid, I'd be like, oh my God, I can't tell you how many times I felt the same way when I was learning this. Anybody else in the room feel that way? And when you diffuse and you acknowledge and you accept that and you say, my God, it is kind of stupid. It's like, it just is like, oh, well, I've been heard. Oh, that's cool. Like, instead of, no, it's not stupid. Stop talking. We're teaching. You are going to get a whole room full of that energy of this is stupid because it's not being acknowledged. So that is one of the really quick ways to come back into center so you can make that courageous action is to embrace it, to sit with all of you.
I love it. You said make peace with it. And as you were describing that, I was thinking of even when you were making that visualization of you go get your nails done, then you still come home and sit on the couch. And it's still what I was thinking, you're still in bondage. It still has a grip on you so you don't take that courageous action. So when you check in with your energy and it's really clear and it's showing you where you need to take that action, but fear steps in louder and louder with the microphone in hand.
Yes.
If you don't take the action, it still has a grip on you because now you did nothing. Fear won, and now uses a weapon to beat the crap out of yourself.
Exactly.
So you're still exactly where you started.
Yes.
So I was even thinking, and I tell employees this all the time, and Lainey and I wrote about this in our first book, Don't Be a Yes Chick. And we wrote a whole chapter on locking arms with those emotions. You always use the analogy of you need to go in and have a conversation with your boss that you haven't had a raise in a year, you're overworked and so quit, and now you're doing their job and the job of two other people or whatever it might be, and you need some help. And you go in with that box of tissues. You bring it in. It's okay. And I think a lot of times people don't take action and or have conversations because they're so fearful that the emotions are going to bubble up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's bring them with you and come from a place of inspired action, number one. And number two is that just lock arms with those emotions. Let them come to the surface. Let them come out. And the quicker you can practice it, even if you're on stage and you do throw up. So you throw up and then you continue you make a joke about it and then you continue your conversation, whatever it is. I guarantee the next time you're not going to throw up and you are going to connect with someone like you said. Yeah, it is stupid. I remember that time. So I love that, Olivia, of you even bringing that in, because I think from there you can even infuse that initial first conversation that we had about what would it feel like to be confident and authentic with this? And and integrating that with this piece. So, wow.
Yeah. And can I just add something to that beautiful visual that is, I think one of the things that we all fear is like vomiting on stage, right? So if we went into that experience, let's say we went in and we embraced that part of ourselves that is afraid that we're going to vomit again because we did it when we were 5, and we hold that and we go in and we vomit on stage. It's like we've already loved that part of ourselves so that we can, and after that happens, we're like, oh, we've already held that piece. Now we can make a joke and move on. But if we've never accepted that and loved that, and that happens on stage, we're more apt to be so sidetracked and thrown off that we may run off the stage. Does that make sense? So embracing these fears and loving them and validating them, but not becoming them, right? It's that like you are the parent of all your children of yourself, right? And you are holding that space and listening at the same time and loving. We are so much more able to be open to experiences of all kinds and not judge it and not fear it when we start to love all of those different experiences and embrace it as part of our journey. There's something really, I mean, people talk about this all the time. This is not the first time, but this has obviously been talked about. It's such a powerful tool because fear really is love in disguise, right? Fear is one of the like big things that is for like getting us to kind of love that part. The hardest parts to love are usually, blanketed in fear.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Olivia, I cannot thank you enough for being here today with us. And I would love for our listeners to stay connected. How could they stay connected, learn a little bit more about this transformation, manifestation, energy, and be able to, I always like to call them booster shots, and be able to give themselves some, start practicing and playing with some of the things you're teaching in your work?
Well, first of all, I want to just say thank you so much, Molly. This has been such an inspiring conversation. And I love you so much. So thank you for
Indeed.
having me
So
on.
fun.
One of the things they can do is just go to my website, olivialundberg.com, OLIVIALUNDBERG.com, and sign up for my book, which will give you some really easy ways to reconnect with your intuition and activate it and manifest. So that's one way. And once you sign up, you'll be on my Smart Spark email list, which will give you weekly kind of booster shots to helping you kind of work with energy and intuition that week. So some really simple and easy ways and tools to kind of work in line with what's going on this planet, and also manifesting the things you love and the life you love. So that's a really simple way to stay connected and to start practicing.
And what I love about your weekly spark that you send out, Olivia, is it's always very, very simplistic, maybe 2, 3 paragraphs. I love that you have such an appreciation for people's time and attention span,
Yeah.
especially as business owners. And you always have like the most profound, perfect message in there, and exercise for the week that I personally appreciate so much, because it always causes me to the power of the pause. I know you see my replies often where I'm like, how in the world did you know? This is exactly what I needed to do. And there's always just a great little exercise to be able to realign and recalibrate either my mindset, my perspective, my energy in just the absolute purest form of it can shift my entire week. And I love that you start the week and send that out. So thank you. I cannot say
Oh my
enough to the
gosh.
listeners of just subscribing to that, because it is always exactly planted in the perfect place and time of when you need it.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Molly. I'm so honored. I don't know what to say. I'm so glad that it resonates for you and for my audience as well. So it's such a pleasure to put those things together, and it helps me. I'm like, if it helps me, I'll put it out there, and that's usually the train of thought. So I'm so glad that works.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Well, thank you. And thank you for being here today. And for today's listeners, please subscribe to our podcast. We will be putting out a weekly podcast. And if you like what you hear today and you want to make certain that you do not miss any future messages from Hiring and Empowering Solutions, please subscribe at the link down below.